So I'm just so honored and blessed to be able to give this conversation today. And I like interactivity. I like that you're going to participate as well as me participate. And so I have a slideshow set up, and Cassie's going to run the show, and I'm going to ask her to forward it and so forth. Um, but our topic today, let's go there first, is naturally divine. And so I thought about this topic and I was like, okay, so in the beginning was the word. This is all from Genesis, right? And I think it's the fifth day, God created man in his image and likeness. Well, God's divine, therefore we are if we're in the image and likeness. I was like, sermon over. There you go. There's nothing else to say about it. And in the reading that Nild gave, it says the same thing. So, and whatever we believe in ourselves, that's who we are. So I'm going to ask Cassie to start the slideshow now. Anyway, so you may want to have, she's going to hit the play button. There we go. You may want to have a pencil and paper so you can take notes or you can write down some things. I am going to ask you to write some things. If you don't have paper and pencil, that's okay. You can write right in the chat with us. And if you don't want to do that either, that's okay. But I hope you participate because then it makes it more interesting to be here. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. So again, the question, are we naturally divine? Well, I think I answered that. If we believe that we are made in the likeness and the image of God, then there we are. So we're going to think about us as human beings for a moment. So if you'll go to the next slide. And I'd like you, if you're using paper, I'd like you to make 2 columns. And on the left, I want you to write down your positive attributes. And if you don't want to put yours, that's okay. You could put humans. Positive attributes, and then on the right column you want to put your negative, kind of like a positive negative, comparing back and forth. And I'll give you a minute to do that. If you want to write this in the chat, you can. I tend to always go to the positive things. That's just my personality, but I do know we do have negative attributes that all of us we work on not having. I'll put it that way. So you can take a moment to do that. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So here we all are with a positive and negative. Now I heard, let's see, Nild touched on this. I think Mary Jo touched on this. We are all in sync today, you guys. This is fabulous. So humans are fascinating. They just are. They're intelligent. We are social. We're creative. We're capable. We're loving. And I added another one. We can be awakened when we want to be. And some are and some aren't. And then if you look at the other side, the negative side, you'll see we can be unconscious, we can be destructive, we can be biased, we can be selfish, we can be hateful. And then I added one, we can be fearful. That's something that I've struggled with in the past, not anymore. In the past, that was something I struggled with. So humans are fascinating. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So again, after looking at these attributes, are we divine by design? And some would argue, no, we're not. Because we're born of sin, because we should fear God. And I will share with you guys, when I was growing up, I grew up a Baptist, and I was taught to fear God. I was taught to be afraid, that the music, fearful, we're born of sin. Anyway, so I go to the foundations class at Science of Mind, and the pastor, who was Patrick at that time. I'd never taken a class before or anything. And he's talking about how we're divine. And I looked right at him and I said, "How are you not afraid?" And he just looked at me and he smiled and he said, "Because we're divine." And I'll never forget that moment because it switched me. It kind of shifted my thinking just enough to kind of open my mind that maybe I shouldn't be afraid of God. And thank God we have free will and we have the choice that we can change our minds. And I'm thinking, why would I be afraid of something that created me? Why would I be afraid of that? That's crazy. So through meditation and spiritual practice, we can come to know that we don't need to be afraid. We can come to know that we are divine, that we have this light, and that we are a piece of God, which I just love that saying. Okay, Cassie, we can go to the next slide. So here's some questions that we're going to ponder today. Do our genetics determine our destiny, or do we have a choice in how we turn out? Do we have a choice daily to determine our behavior? Another good question. And how do we make the most of the gift of the human experience? So we're going to ponder these questions, but first we're going to lay some foundation for you. So Cassie, we can go to the next slide. So we get to live on our beautiful planet called Earth. We get to live here. So the question is, are we living as one? Are we living in harmony with the planet, with nature, with all living beings? Most importantly, this is the biggest question of all. Are we living in harmony and oneness with ourselves? If we're a piece of God and we're not living in harmony and oneness with ourselves, well, something's off. Something's not congruent. If we truly believe that God is all there is, then should we not live as if this were true? How do we move from just saying words to understanding how this truth shows up in our lives? Well, we need to move to make a daily intervention on ourselves. And we do that through prayer, meditation, spiritual practice. And what an amazing living planet we get to inhabit. Again, we get to live here. It's so special, so special. Okay, next slide. Thank you. So I had to include this. This is an image from the new James Webb Space Telescope. And this is parts of the universe that we as humans have never seen before. And I believe these images are actually about 15 million years old, which is mind-blowing, right? But light can't travel fast enough to get to us, so we're seeing the past in these photographs. We are but a speck in this larger picture. We think of it, we're a speck on planet Earth. Think about Earth and then the speck of this universe. We've discovered thousands of universes being born, stars that are dying, planets that are dying, planets that are being born. This is just amazing, amazing. If you ever stood on the edge of the Grand Canyon, I would ask to raise your hand if you did, but I can't see anybody raising their hand. But if you've ever stood on the edge of the Grand Canyon, you have felt the immense grandeur and the awe of just how small of a speck we are in the world. And that's just the Grand Canyon. Maybe you haven't been there, but you were at Niagara Falls. You would have that same experience, the awe of the grandeur of it all, and the beauty, and how it made me feel insignificant being at the Grand Canyon. And so here is our planet among the stars and galaxies yet undiscovered. Wow. Okay, next slide. So here's another photo from deep space. This is a nebula, I believe. And do you remember a few weeks ago, Chris showed us pictures of the trees and the lakes from space and compared them to our human body veins, all the blood running through. And people, I know all of you guys, including myself, we were amazed. They all look alike. And so it comes back to this great example of as without, so within. So here is this universe that we're seeing through this telescope. This is what's inside our physical human bodies, you guys. We each contain an entire universe within this spacesuit that we wear, right? It's just fabulous. Okay, next slide. So since we looked at space, I thought, well, we should look at our own planet. This is a school of angelfish. When we explore our oceans and we discover our planet's natural beauty, we are steeped in the omniscient presence of our Creator. I was so privileged when I was in Galapagos. I was snorkeling. A lot of you know I got hurt while I was there, but while I was healthy, I was snorkeling, and I had a school of, it had to be 50 to 100. I don't know. It was a lot of angelfish that just came swimming by me. And it was so beautiful. Talk about connecting with nature and really feeling like one. They weren't afraid of me. They weren't disturbed by the fact that I was in the water splashing around. And so this picture reminds me of it. I have to say this picture is nowhere near what I actually got to see, but I didn't have a camera. So there's the angelfish. Now, on Science of Mind, page 72, there's a quote I have, and it's, "Life waits upon man's discovery of natural laws, his discovery of himself, and his discovery of his relationship to the great whole." And I think that's exactly what's happening when we explore our Earth or we explore out in the universe. We are in and surrounded by spirit, just like a fish is surrounded and in by water. We can't escape it. We are in it. It is in us. We cannot escape it. And therefore, again, we are divine. Okay, Cassie, next slide, please. Very good. So since we're completely surrounded by and in all of God, that one life that is all there is, we are completely immersed in and with spirit. When we are disconnected, now this is fascinating, we are stagnant and polluted. When we do not practice and live our connection, we are out of balance and typically unhappy. When we surrender to the flow of love of God in our lives, we thrive. Have you ever had that experience where you finally just quit trying to control something? And the minute you did that, you were like, you know what? I can't control this. This is out of my pay grade. And all of a sudden, things shift. And with that shift, it all works out. So that's what this reminds me of. Even if we deny our divineness, it can't go away. Here's another quote from Science of Mind. This is from page 33. Nild, I read the one you had, page 34. This is the page before. "There is that within every individual which partakes of the nature of the universal wholeness, and insofar as it operates, is God. That is the meaning of the word Emmanuel, the meaning of the word Christ. There is that within us which partakes of the nature of the divine being. And since it partakes of the nature of the divine being, we are divine." We can stop right there. Awesome. Again, remember from Genesis, we are made in the likeness and image of God. Therefore, that divineness is with us no matter what. We are divine by design. Okay, next slide, Cassie. We believe and teach as religious scientists that there is within us there is that within us which partakes of the nature of the divine being. Thus, we're divine. This is an inherent quality in all of us, but is not always acknowledged, felt, or consciously realized. When this is true, we don't experience the demonstrations we seek. Now, I'm going to read that again. When we don't acknowledge this divineness and oneness within ourselves, we do not experience the demonstrations we seek. As humans, we must consciously engage in a spiritual practice of knowledge and truth seeking. That's what we're doing today by being here, and consciously practice it in our lives. Demonstrations occur regardless, but it may not be what we want. So my question to all of you is this: what is it that you would like to demonstrate in your life? Let's go to the next slide. So now I hope you participate in the chat. Here's a question for you. Do our genetics determine our destiny, or do we have a choice in how we turn out? And I'll give you a moment to answer that. Or is it predetermined, or do we have a choice in how we turn out? What do you think? Good, I see we have a choice. I see God determines. Cool, we have a choice. Great. God's genes override. I love that. Excellent. Okay, next slide. So here's some interesting data. According to science, the DNA in your genes is about 99.9% the same as the DNA in every other human being. That means that 0.1% of us is different. Everything else, 99.9%, is exactly the same. That kind of blew my mind when I read that. These common genetic structures mean members of the same species are born with a variety of behaviors that come naturally to them, defining the characteristics of the species, meaning humans. These abilities and characteristics are known as instincts, which are complex inborn patterns of behaviors that help ensure survival and reproduction. And just think about teenagers, right? I used to teach high school. I can tell you, they're all about that reproduction. Different animals have different instincts. For example, birds build nests. Dogs are naturally loyal to their human caretaker. Spiders build spider webs. And humans instinctively learn to communicate and understand language. Fascinating. But the strength of different traits and behaviors varies within the species. Rabbits are naturally fearful, but some rabbits are more fearful than others. Some dogs are more loyal than others, and some humans learn to speak and write better than others. These variances are determined in part by the small differences in our genes. Though we share 99.9% of all genetics with the rest of humans, we see vast differences among people with respect to sex, ethnicity, appearance, and ability, just to name a few. Very good. Okay, next slide. Do we have a choice daily to determine our behavior? So you can go ahead and keep writing in the chat. I love what we're seeing. Do we have a choice daily to determine our behavior? Oh, absolutely. We choose how we respond. Yes, yes. You guys are doing great. Absolutely. Okay, Cassie, next slide. So We are divine beings having a human experience. We have the ability to be conscious of our choices and the impact we have. We can be inspired by simple and powerful acts of compassion and kindness, remembering that we too can help others. So it only requires a willingness to observe what is happening to those around you and the desire to help. Consider taking time to lend a listening ear. Open a door for someone. Offer to help a stranger carry a package, or do something on an even larger scale. As with all things of God, the size of the gift does not matter. A simple act of kindness, compassion, joy, or love raises the vibration of the entire planet. And it touches lives of others and makes them better in the process. And it all starts with us. It starts with that one person. Very good, very good. We have complete control over our behavior. I agree with that, and yet sometimes I feel like I don't. Okay, our last question. If you'll pop that next slide right up here. How do we make the most of the gift of the human experience? What are some things that we can make the most of our gift of the human experience? You can pop that in the chat. Oh, I love that, Cassie. Live in the current moment rather than in the past or future. Absolutely. A daily gratitude list. Oh, yay, yay, yay. That's fabulous, fabulous. Allowing God to express through us. Sure, like the song, I am the light. We are the light. We are the ones we've been waiting for. Accept each event as a blessing and a chance to grow. Absolutely. There are no failures. It's just you learn how to do it a little differently. Great. Notice our distinctions rather than our differences. That's great. Okay, Cassie, you can go to the next slide. So I put, we get to live here. Coming back to that. In order to experience what we want, we can use spiritual tools. As a practitioner, spiritual mind treatment is like probably the number one tool that we could use. When we speak our word into the universe, it has to manifest in some form. Spiritual mind treatment, gratitude lists, awesome. Affirmations are a great way to create or manifest what you want. And just a couple of days ago, I came across a guy who he decided he's going to ask very audacious questions. And I hesitate to use the question why. But what he does is he creates the question with why in the front, but the affirmation is like built into it. So why am I so healthy that I can help other people be healthy too? And it's like, that assumes that you're already healthy. And I thought, I like that. So I just throw that out for you. I know why can be because if you get stuck in that, why did this happen to me? That's not how you're going to get yourself out of that hole. So you have to be careful with that. A long time ago, I was working with a pastor, and I was trying to decide the man that I wanted in my life. And this is before I knew anything about science of mind or anything. But this pastor, he said, you need to make a list. I didn't know that we manifested. I didn't know that we actually created our lives. I kind of thought we did, but I was in this fearful God place. So it just was something that I would never have thought about. So he said to me, you need to make a list of all the attributes that you desire in a partner. And so I decided that I would do that. And I made a list, and I mean, I studied, and I had a yellow legal pad, and it had every line had something about the man that I wanted in my life, my partner. And I had 4 pages, you guys. Man, I don't even remember everything that was on the list. I don't even know if I still have the list, to be honest with you. But it was 4 pages long. And I carefully stapled it at the top, and I folded it in half after I made it. And I put it away in a nightstand drawer. And I never gave it another thought. It was just there. But while I was making this list, here I am, I'm talking to God, right? I'm having this conversation in my head. And I thought, I know that this person doesn't exist. I'm going to be smarter than this list. And so I decided that this guy, whoever he was, had to own a hot tub. Now, how ridiculous is that? Like, it was just a crazy thought that I had. So I wrote it down. He had to own a hot tub. About 6 weeks later, my sister calls me up and she says, "You need to come and visit me on vacation. And while you're here, we have a blind date lined up for you." And I'm like, oh, doing the no freaking way. I don't want a blind date. But I finally conceded. I said, okay. So I met this man, and he was okay. He was kind of cute, but I didn't feel like sparks. I think I was too afraid, to be quite honest. But about a week later, we're now on the phone every single night talking. And I told him that I had this list and I did not know if he qualified to date me. That's pretty audacious to say that. So I said, I have this list, and I went down a couple of things that I wasn't sure about on the list. And he's like, yeah, that's yes, yes, yes. And I said, but I know for a fact, I had been to his house. I said, I know for a fact that you don't qualify. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I said, well, in order for you to date me and us to be serious, you have to own a hot tub. Now, I had been to his house and I knew he didn't have one. And he looked at me, or he's on the phone with me, and he says, but I do. And I was like, what? It was all wrapped up in the basement in storage. So it wasn't out and any place in the house where you would see it. So long story short, I ended up marrying the guy, but it was because of that list that he showed up. And I planted that seed of what I really desired in my life, and it showed up exactly what I asked for. So that's just, I wanted to share that story. If he's listening, he's probably horrified that I shared that. But I wanted to share that because we do get what we ask for. We truly, truly do. So here's a quote from Michael Beckwith. As an alchemist of your own life, find a bit of the frequency you want to experience and place your attention there. As it becomes your perception, live from that place. Wow, that is so powerful, you guys. Let me do that again. Let me read it. As an alchemist of your own life, which you are, find a bit of the frequency you want to experience and place your attention there. As it becomes your perception, live from that place. So at this point, I just would like to say, you may be stuck. You may feel, I'm stuck with something. I don't know how to get past it. And I would invite you to explore a spiritual mind treatment with one of our practitioners here today. I know Cassie can put you in the room and do all that, the tech stuff for you. It's a free, 3 to 5 minute conversation, and just to kind of maybe get you out of that stuckness. All right. We have miracle moments every Sunday. Working with a practitioner can truly, truly make a big difference. Okay, Cassie, next one. So To get to the end of this, look for those treasures in your life. Be grateful. We get to live here. I mean, how awesome is that? We get to live here. And if you don't like where you're living, then you need to figure out how to change that. But we get to live here. I love that phrase. That's what we say. I live in an air park and we always go around. We get to live here because it's just a very cool place. Okay, next slide. Remember, we are divine by design. So it comes back to, what do you believe about yourself? As religious scientists, we believe there's one power and one presence. Therefore, the individual personality is determined by what we believe about ourselves. We can know what we believe about ourselves based on our vibrational energy and who we attract into our experience. Like attracts like, meaning two entities vibrating at the frequencies are pulled toward each other. Fascinating stuff. Okay, and the last slide. We are so glad you're here with us today. Again, what are you looking for today? What would you love to have happen in your life? We can help you with that as practitioners. And I'm just so blessed and honored that I was able to do this conversation with you all today. And I love you all so much. I love this community. Some of you may not know, I actually live in Tennessee, and our community, our main community, is in Connecticut, where I was music director there for, I don't know, 10 or 12 years. It was a long time. And I'm still staying connected because there's nowhere close. It's about 2 hours away, the closest Science of Mind. So I love the technology. I love the fact that we can learn online, and it makes me feel connected. And I love all of my practitioners. I believe there's 9 of us. It's just fabulous. We have a really great community of people, and we are attracting the right minister to lead us forward in this journey that we're on.